By late evening, Patrick returned with the stiffness of a man who had already chosen noise over sense. He did not greet anyone. He walked straight to the yard. He loosened his belt, rolled his shoulders, and stood in the open like a performance was about to begin. Angela, he shouted as soon as he got in. Come here now. Windows shifted. Curtains moved as apropos people in the compound were ready to hear and see his next line of action. Angela stepped out with measured steps. Yes, sir, she answered. Patrick looked at her and laughed like a hyena. Good. I am so happy you still recognize who the man is. Now come here, kneel down and beg. Angela looked at him and said quietly, No, sir. I will not beg for defending myself, and I will not beg for cooking with my own money. Patrick's mouth twitched. Something in the quiet of her words seemed to mock the volume of his. That was like pouring petrol on fire. He rushed at her, stretched his hand to slap her, but Angela stepped aside. The slap landed on empty air, and the children shouted, "Eh." Patrick tried again. She blocked him with her arm. He stumbled and then he backed. Angela, so you don't know what it means to be a submissive wife? Patrick, you are disgracing us. Let's go inside and settle like matured adults, she replied. But Patrick didn't listen. He kept rushing at her like a stubborn goat, left, right, center. He was throwing his hands everywhere. Angela tried to walk inside, and to him that was like bruising his ego. So he landed his hand on her back. That was when Angela's eyes changed because it was really painful. She remembered everything Chike had been teaching her in the mornings, and her heart said, enough is enough. Before Patrick could swing again, bam! A jam landed on his chest. He staggered back. The compound screamed. He rushed again. Whamp! A hook to the jaw. His head turned like a standing fan. He tried to grab her dress, but she bent low and gave him an uppercut. Boom! His mouth opened and spit flew into the air. Jesus! Somebody shouted. Angela, don't turn Mike Tyson on. Patrick staggered, confused, but Angela was not done. She gave him 2 quick punches on his ribs. Mama! And he bent like somebody searching for money on the floor. The neighbors were now on fire. Chike stood in his apartment and he was so happy that his student was doing a perfect job. Patrick finally fell to his knees, holding his mouth and chest. His eyes were rolling like Ludo dice. He looked up at Angela, breathing hard. He could not believe it. This was the same woman he used to beat like drum. Angela adjusted herself, looked at him, then with a straight face she said, I am sorry, sir, for doing this. The whole compound exploded. People were laughing so hard, some almost rolled on the ground, but Angela didn't laugh. She just walked back to the house and closed the door gently like nothing happened. Patrick remained kneeling in the yard, holding his swollen jaw, trying to understand if this was still his wife or a new person he had never met. The children gathered around him singing, Sorry, sir. Sorry, sir, until he stood up and dragged himself to his flat like a wounded soldier returning from battle. He didn't even look at anybody again. He just leaned inside, banged his door shut, and went straight to bed without eating. He kept asking himself the same question. Was that really Angela? My Angela? The orphan I have been beating? Sleep finally came, but it was not peaceful. He saw Angela chasing him with boxing gloves while the neighbors clapped in the dream. He woke up sweating. The next morning, Angela herself woke up looking so fresh. Her face was calm as if nothing had happened the night before. She greeted politely. Good morning, my husband. Patrick, who was sitting on the edge of the bed rubbing his sore jaw, refused to answer. He just grunted like a goat with a sore throat. His pride was still refusing to reconcile with reality. Angela didn't mind. She carried her small notebook, tore out a piece of paper and walked to him. She placed it gently on the stool beside him. I am going for training, sir, she said in her usual soft voice. When I return, I want to cook something good. This is the list of things that we need, sir. Patrick turned his head slowly, looking at the paper, then back at her. His eyes widened when she added, "And please, sir, I need the complete money, not what you have been doing before. I mean, your usual 5% or nothing at all. This time, give me the full money." He blinked. What? Angela kept her tone respectful but firm. "Because when you refuse to give, I use my small money. And when I cook with my money, you still complain. Sometimes you even beat me. That will not continue, sir." The words hung in the air like a new law. Patrick's mouth opened, but no words came. He remembered how her feet had spoken the night before. He remembered how his jaw still ached, and he also remembered the laughter of the neighbors and the children's song. Angela picked up her water bottle and left for her morning training, leaving Patrick staring at the paper. He sat there for a long moment, staring at the list as though it was a court order. Rice, beans, tomatoes, oil, maggi, meat and fish. The items danced before his eyes, and his pride told him, "Don't give her a cobble." But his swollen jaw whispered, "You better complete this morning before she lands you another uppercut." He rubbed his mouth gently, shook his head and muttered, "So Angela now has a mouth to give me conditions?" He drew back on the bed, pulled out his pillow over his head and tried to sleep again, but the neighbor's laughter from last night echoed in his ears. He dropped a neat bundle of cash. He counted it. Every single item on her list was covered. In fact, he added extra, as if to say, "Please, don't remember me with another uppercut." He got dressed for work and wore dark glasses to the office, trying to hide the bruises. But no matter how he covered himself, his lip was still swollen and his steps were unbalanced. He entered the office quietly, hoping nobody would notice, but Nigerians don't miss gist. The moment he walked in, his colleagues shouted, "Patrick, what happened to your face?" Patrick forced a laugh. "Ah, I had small accident, Jare." Another colleague leaned forward. "Accident? This one no look like accident too. This one look like beating." The whole office burst into laughter. Patrick's face darkened. He adjusted his glasses and snapped, "Mind your business, Oga." The laughter doubled. Someone muttered, "Accidents will resemble uppercuts." Patrick said nothing again. He sat down at his desk, pretending to focus on papers, but his mind was boiling. How could he explain that it was his own wife who redesigned his face? That after years of beating her, one day she fought back and gave him the lesson of his life. He swallowed the truth and let silence cover his shame. Angela came back from her training that morning. She stepped into the parlor and froze. She bent down, counted the money slowly, and tears filled her eyes. Since the day she married Patrick, she had never seen him give her full money for food. He would always drop little, 500 naira for a list of 10,000 naira, or sometimes nothing at all. But this morning, everything was there, even extra. She sank to her knees. She lifted her hands and prayed with tears rolling down her cheeks. "God, thank you. Even if it took shame, even if it took bruises, today my husband has done what he should have been doing. Change his heart, Lord, and make him a man who provides, not one who punishes." When she finished praying, she hurried to the market. She bought all she needed and she carried her basket home with joy bubbling in her heart. That afternoon, the aroma of stew filled the compound. The neighbors looked at one another knowingly. "Eh? So Angela can cook like this?" Better food has been hiding since because of stingy husband. Angela sang as she stirred the pot, adding oil, spices and meat without fear of lack. Her joy was in every moment. By the time the food was ready, the stew was rich, the rice fluffy, and the whole house smelt like celebration. Patrick dragged himself home from work, still nursing his swollen pride. He opened the door, and the sweet smell of food hit him. His stomach betrayed him with a loud growl. He sat down quietly and Angela served him a full plate of rice and stew with generous meat sitting boldly on top. Patrick picked up his spoon and tasted it. His eyes widened. He chewed slowly, then took another spoonful, then another. Before long, he was eating like a man who had just discovered food for the first time. As he cleared the plates, he began muttering to himself, Patrick, what was even wrong with you all this while? So it wasn't that my wife can't cook, it's because I was an irresponsible husband who never provided. Angela heard him but said nothing. She only smiled faintly as she washed plates in the kitchen. Patrick licked the spoon clean, looked at his empty plate and shook his head. Omo, I've been punishing myself, shouting and beating when the problem was me all along. For the first time in years, he felt full, not just in his stomach, but in his heart. Angela came to sit beside him in the parlor. She looked at him without fear. Patrick, she said slowly, I need to say something. He nodded. I am sorry for the way I beat you in front of everybody. I didn't want it to get to that point, but you kept on pushing me. I only defended myself. Patrick looked up surprised. He rubbed his jaw gently and let out a small laugh. Angela, you don't need to be sorry. I was the foolish one. I was starving you, beating you and disgracing you. Yesterday was the first time I saw myself clearly. You only showed me the truth with your fist. They both laughed a little with the tension melting. Patrick reached for her hand. Forgive me. I have been an irresponsible husband. I promise you, from today, no more stinginess, no more beating, and no more foolish pride. Angela's eyes were filled with tears. I forgive you, she said. Let us build our home in peace. All I want is a husband who cares. For the first time in their marriage, they held hands and spoke like friends. And from their room, they landed in Jerusalem to seal their reconciliation. From that week, things began to change. Patrick became serious with his job, no longer distracted by pride and quarrels. He gave Angela money in full whenever she asked and sometimes even added extra without waiting for her list. The neighbors noticed the difference. Instead of fights, they now heard Angela's laughter drifting from the flat. 1 month later, Patrick was called into his office. His boss commended his renewed focus and discipline. To his surprise, he was promoted to a higher position with better salary and allowance. When he came home with the news, Angela danced in the parlor thanking God. See how peace brings blessings, she said with her hands lifted. With the new salary, Patrick told her, we cannot continue living here where everybody saw our disgrace. Let us move to a better place. Angela agreed. Together, they packed their things and left the compound quietly. The neighbors watched them go, some whispering, truly, no marriage is beyond redemption if the right skill is being applied. In their new apartment, it was as if the whole world turned in their favor. Angela's face began to shine again. The dark circles around her eyes disappeared. She started dressing well. Her skin glowed, and her former neighbors who saw her in the market said, Angela, you are looking younger every day. Oh. Patrick too changed. He stopped drinking completely. No more late nights in beer parlors and no more wasting money on alcohol. Instead, he came home early, sat with his wife and ate her food with joy. His stomach reduced, his eyes cleared, and his colleague at work said, Patrick, you are looking fresh these days, oh. What is your secret? He only smiled and replied, peace of mind. One Saturday morning, he surprised Angela. He came home with documents and a big smile. Angela, he said, you have suffered with me, but now I want you to stand on your own. I have rented a shop for you and I have stocked it with goods. You will be running your own business. Angela dropped the spoon she was holding, her eyes wide. Patrick, are you serious? He nodded. Yes, I am. You stood by me when I was irresponsible. You prayed for me when I didn't deserve it. You even taught me sense with your fists. They both laughed. Now it is time for me to give you wings. Angela fell on her knees with tears of joy running down her cheeks. Thank you, Lord. You have turned my sorrow into laughter. From that day, Angela became a businesswoman. She woke up every morning and opened her shop. She sold rice, beans, gari, and provisions, and customers loved her because she treated them with respect, and money began to flow. The couple became an example to others. People who once mocked them now admired them. Younger wives came to Angela for advice, and Patrick advised other men in his office. If you don't provide for your wife, don't complain when she reminds you that responsibility is not optional. Months passed in their new life and the difference showed everywhere. Angela's shop was doing well. Patrick was steady at his job and their home was full of laughter. No shouting, no beating, and no bitterness. They prayed together at night, shared jokes, and even went to church hand in hand. For years, Angela has silently carried the pain of childlessness. Patrick too had been worried, but instead of showing love, he had poured his frustration on her with insults and beatings. Now that peace had replaced war, something shifted. Their minds were knitted together. Their prayers were united and their love was no longer bitter. One morning, Angela felt strange. Food smelt differently. Sleep pressed her at odd hours, and her body gave her hints she could not ignore. She went quietly to the hospital for a test. When the nurse smiled and said, "Congratulations, madam, you are pregnant," she fell on her knees right there, weeping with joy. She ran home, entered the living room where Patrick was reading the newspaper and knelt before him. "Patrick," she whispered, her voice breaking, "we are going to have a baby." Patrick froze. The paper slipped from his hands. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming. Then he grabbed her hands, pulling her up. "Angela, are you serious?" "Yes," she cried, laughing through her tears. "It is true." Patrick lifted her like a child, turning around the parlor. "God, thank you." From then on, Patrick treated Angela like gold. He carried her back to the hospital when his schedules allowed it. He gave her food at odd hours and even cooked for her. The man who once refused to buy meat now bought cartons of milk, fruits, and anything she craved. Angela's face glowed with joy, and Patrick's pride was no longer in noise but in love. They both knew that the child came not because of medicine or stress-free living, but because bitterness had left their hearts. 9 months later, the baby arrived, a healthy, bouncing baby boy. They named him Chibuke, meaning "God is my strength." Patrick's changes became so visible for all to see. He was calmer, wiser, and surprisingly humble. He began to talk differently, not only in his home but outside too. At work, he became more gentle with his colleagues. When they argued, he no longer shouted. When they gossiped, he no longer joined. His boss noticed and said, "Patrick, I don't know what changed in your life, but I love it for you." One day during lunch break, Patrick's colleagues gathered, as men often do. They complained about their wives. One said his wife was always asking for money. Another said his wife no longer respected him. The third one said he was tired of cooking for himself whenever he came home late, but Patrick only smiled quietly. Then one of them teased him. "Patrick, you were quiet today. Before you would be the loudest, saying how women need beating to respect men. What happened? Abi, your wife don't hold you hostage?" Patrick looked at them carefully. He touched his jaw where the memory of Angela's uppercut still lived, and then he leaned forward. "My brothers, let me tell you something. Most of us men have used 'I am the head of the house' as an excuse to become heartless and unreasonable. That thing had destroyed many homes." They went quiet. They were not used to Patrick speaking with such a calm authority. He continued, Headship is not licensed to maltreat. A true head carries the load, not the whip. For years, I thought I was showing power by refusing to provide, by beating my wife and by shouting at her. I almost lost everything because of pride. But the day I tasted my wife's food cooked with money and joy, I realized the problem was me, not her. My wife was always capable. I was the irresponsible one. One man laughed nervously. Patrick, are you saying your wife beat sense into you? Patrick smiled, shaking his head. If you want to put it that way, yes, she fought back when I pushed her too far. But that punch was not just pain, it was revelation. It showed me I had turned the woman who loved me into a slave. It showed me that I've been punishing myself all along because a woman who is sad cannot cook with joy. She cannot smile. She cannot give you peace. And my brothers, a sad woman meets a sad home. They stared at him surprised. Patrick leaned closer and then he said, make your wives happy and see if your life will not change. A happy woman is a happy home. I am a living proof. Since I changed, I have been promoted at work. My wife is running her own shop and now we have a child after years of waiting. Tell me, is that not blessing? The men shifted, uncomfortable but thoughtful. One of them asked, so what are you saying we should do? Patrick answered plainly, provide for them. Don't give half. Don't give unnecessary excuses for failing in your role as the man of the house. Support them. The head carries load and it is not for shouting or reminding them, I am the head of this house. I am the Lord of this house. If you give your wife peace, you will sleep with peace. And trust me, when you stop struggling with your wife, you will see that your life will stop struggling too. The group was silent for a moment. Even the man who had been laughing earlier nodded slowly. Patrick, your words are strong. Maybe you are right. From that day, Patrick became a quiet counselor to struggling men. Not in church and not with a microphone, but in ordinary conversations. He would often say, I am not proud of the old Patrick, but I'm proud that I did not remain him. So dear Karma Tribe, let me throw this back to you. Do you agree with Patrick when he said most men hide under I am the head of the house to become heartless? And let's be honest, do you also believe that a happy woman is a happy home? Kindly share your thoughts with me as I'll be so glad to read from you once again. Don't forget to give the story your thumbs up, share it to your loved ones, and if you have not subscribed to this channel, punch on the subscribe button so that you can join the Karma Tribe. Until I bring the next interesting story your way, it's a goodbye from here and God bless you.